A man witnesses a conversation he shouldn't have. A murder plot. One evening at the gym he'd been working out at for the last few years, Mundo, an amateur boxer, peers through a crack in a doorway, eavesdropping on the two women on the other side. They speak in hushed tones, interjected with short peals of laughter. Shivers run down his spine as he strains to catch every word, every muscle, tensed in anticipation. No, seriously, I know a guy who can chop someone up. Maybe we can use him. Mundo recognizes one of the women as Lulu, the wife of the gym owner and his good friend Ramon. Before she can leave, he corners her, asking, "Did I hear you right back there? Something about chopping people up?" She hesitates. "It's my husband. He's abusive. I wish he'd just go away." The man sees his opportunity. "When you say, go away, do you mean?" Mundo makes a gun shape with his hands and fires. "'Cause I know some homeboys who could get it done." She leans back, considering the offer, before leaning in close and whispering, "Yes, get rid of his ass, just like that." In 2007, Ramon Sosa had just strolled up to a Mexican restaurant he'd been recommended and saddled up to the bar, buying himself a beer. Sipping on the cold one, he'd idly gazed out onto the dance floor when he saw her. A tall, dark-haired woman spun on the dance floor, as though her feet didn't even touch the ground. She was like a force of nature, a tornado of whirling fabric and raven hair. He tried to distract himself. The ghost of his previous divorce still hung over his head, and the idea of new love still stung. Despite this, his eyes betrayed him and seemed to always find themselves locked on the mystery woman. Pushing his hesitation down, he stepped out onto the dance floor. But before he could get his groove on, a lightning bolt of pain shot up his leg. The mystery woman had driven the spike of her heel into his foot. She apologized profusely, but Ramon wasn't fazed. Gritting through the pain, he took her hand and asked, "Would you dance with me?" Her name was Maria de los Dorantes, or Lulu among her friends. She was in Houston on a work visa from Mexico, working gig jobs like house cleaning. With her were her two children, and despite wrestling with the American immigration system, navigating nonprofits, and driving back to Mexico every 6 months to renew her work visa, she built a modest life for her small family. By 2008, Ramon and Lulu were deeply entwined. Ramon was working with the nonprofit he founded, Young Prospects Boxing, a youth organization teaching local kids physical fitness and discipline. Lulu was intensely supportive of his work, and as the months passed, Ramon fell deeper and deeper in love. By 2010, the two of them opened their own gym together, Woodlands Boxing. One day, over dinner, one of Lulu's friends, Katya, asked, "Ramon, why don't you marry Lulu and help her get her legal status here in the USA?" Ramon hadn't considered that Lulu might want to marry him for anything other than love, and the notion sent him reeling. He was stunned. The two of them just stared at him, waiting for what he'd say. Finally, he answered, "I don't think people should get married just for papers. Marriage is a very serious commitment, and I don't think I'm ready for that yet." This upset Lulu, who shot up in a start, slamming her hands on the table, saying, "So why are we even together?" before she stormed out of the room. The lovers reconciled before bed, but the incident left cracks that Ramon wouldn't see until it was too late. Months passed, and Ramon, despite saying he wasn't ready for another marriage, found himself thinking of tying the knot. After a night out at the club, as his heart threatened to leap right out of his chest, he turned to her and said, "Lulu, I'm so happy to have met you and your family. You've brought life back into me. You've gone through so much and deserve to be happy with your kids now." Then, he asked her to marry him. After the marriage in spring 2009, the excitement in Lulu and Ramon's house rose with every passing day. After years of planning, preparation, and anticipation, the two newlyweds were on their way to the U.S. Immigration Office to finally finish Lulu's permanent resident application. Everyone in the house was elated, even Lulu's 2 children who had taken their time to open up to their new father. As Ramon got dressed before heading over to the immigration office, he thought back to that dinner with Katya. His mind drifted back to stories of Americans who'd married people from other countries, only to have their new spouses leave them the moment they became legal residents. He pushed those thoughts aside, shoving them into the very back of his mind. This was different. Lulu wasn't like that. Or was she? By 2014, Ramon knew that his marriage was coming to an end. They'd never really had a honeymoon phase. She would be a loving wife for a few good weeks, and then, on a dime, she would become vindictive and cruel. She even started talking about selling their gym, Woodlands, and what she would be entitled to, were the 2 of them to divorce. In 2015, Lulu suggested separating. Ramon would live downstairs, and Lulu would take the upper floor with her kids and mother who'd been living with them as of late. Things were tense. If anyone saw him coming, they'd switch to hushed tones and whispers. Ramon knew that divorce was inevitable, but when the divorce papers were finally served, he realized she didn't just want a divorce, she wanted everything. Other incidents shattered Ramon's sense of security. One day, after he was pulled over by a police officer, he discovered that Lulu had secretly registered Ramon's truck in her son Luis's name. To make matters worse, when Ramon confronted Luis about it, he smugly called the police, claiming that Ramon was going to hurt him, even as Ramon stood still, shocked at the blatant lying. Even after Ramon told them his side of the story, they still charged him with assault after Lulu corroborated her son's story, despite not being witness to the incident itself. Years before Ramon met Lulu, at the turn of the millennium, Ramon was working a regular day at Young Prospects when he spied a calm young Latino man standing still amidst the clatter of the gym. He was about as tall as Ramon, and a little overweight, but he carried himself like someone accustomed to working out. Ramon approached him and shook his hand, asking, "You want to learn how to fight?" "Yes, sir," the man replied. Ramon explained that the gym was a non-profit, and any donations the man could spare would be greatly appreciated. Ramon continued, telling him to come back the following day with workout clothes, but the man already had some in his car. Ramon quickly got him working on calisthenics and stretching. The man came back day after day to work out. Since he was an older guy and the gym was mainly patronized by young boys, he quickly became a role model for some of the younger guys. One afternoon, Ramon discovered that he had been raised on Houston's east side in poverty, and like a lot of kids who grew up in poverty, he did what he needed to do for survival. The man had gotten mixed up in local gangs when he was young, and his body was pockmarked with tattoos, bullet wounds, and healed scars from long-forgotten stabbings. The man eventually rose through the ranks to become the leader of his gang, but now, allegedly, he was out and just wanted to live a quiet life again. As time passed, Ramon and the man became close friends. They would go to boxing competitions and hang out on the weekends. Whenever they went out, Ramon would introduce the man as his other son, which the man bashfully reciprocated. Ramon said later that, "I did not give him life, but one day I would owe him mine." The man's name? Mundo. Flash forward back to 2015, Mundo knew that his meeting with Lulu had gone well. He'd recorded the whole thing to cover himself, and she was absolutely on board. Having contacted his boys, Mundo messaged Lulu, giving her screenshots of his conversation. The meeting with Lulu had gone swimmingly. Mundo laid out the plan for her. They'd make it look like a carjacking or robbery gone wrong. Ramon loved his truck. They knew that he would put up a fight if someone was going to take it, so they'd make it look like they murdered him to steal it. Then, they'd dump the truck somewhere, before torching it to make it look like the thieves got scared and wanted to cover up the evidence. Lulu responded, "Perfect. Can they take the rims and the stereo to make it look more real? I wouldn't get a payout from insurance anyway." She continued saying, "I will find out where he is staying. I will also get his mother's address and his sister's and Colombian friends too, to cover all bases. I will either drive Luis's or Carla's car so I do not get recognized." Then, she gave Mundo a step-by-step list of every move Ramon made from dawn to dusk. It was impeccable, perfect. Lulu had been following Ramon's routine for a while in different cars to make sure that he didn't notice anything off. Mundo also let Lulu know that Paco and John Boy had sourced a gun and wanted $200 for it. He let her know that after the job was done, they'd disappear it. As soon as they got the money, the plan would set in motion. Then, on July 21st, 2015, Ramon was killed. Inside of a 4-foot rectangular hole, you could see his unclothed body laying lifeless at the bottom of the makeshift grave. Pinned on his right temple, small like a shirt button, perched a bullet hole. Blood streamed down from the perforation, arcing across his chest, leaving an almost shooting star-like trail in its wake. A sick portent of death and destruction. If you were in the grave with Ramon, you would be able to see a group of people crowded around the foreboding dirt pit. Standing above Ramon, Paco and Mundo grin at their handiwork. They glanced around at the other folks gathered around, feeling a little nervous. Suddenly, Ramon's body jerks violently, and his hands whip up to his face. He swats at the air. Flies have been settling on his face, tickling his nose. "Sorry," Ramon mutters before closing his eyes again. The assistant district attorney, FBI agents, and a handful of beat cops milling about above him relax for a moment before their photo shoot resumes in earnest. Moments earlier, the police had Ramon descend into the hole. Once he was down there, police painted his right temple like a bullet hole using prosthetics and other movie makeup, and drew thin streaks of crimson across his chest. His whole body was shaking, not just from thinking about what his wife had been plotting, but from the fear, panic, paranoia, or simply just a chill in the air. When it came down to taking the photos, he had to remain perfectly still. The cops took photos of him from every angle. They even threw a little bit of dirt over him to make it look extra authentic. Ramon, while lying at the bottom of his own grave, lingered on his own mortality. His mind fluttered back to his children and his parents. He hoped they'd never have to see his body this way. Turning back to that night in Woodland's gym, Mundo listened closely to Lulu's clandestine plans and, the moment he left the gym for the night, immediately relayed the information to Ramon. "Pops, I saw it in her eyes," Mundo said. "I've seen that look before, on people who wanted to have somebody killed, or who wanted to kill somebody themselves." As Mundo uttered those words, all Ramon could do was sit in the front seat of his truck in shock. He just sat in the car as it idled, the faint smell of gasoline coming in through the vent. The engine revved, and Ramon realized that he'd been pressing down on the gas the whole time. The woman Ramon had fallen in love with, the woman he adored, wanted him dead. Ramon contacted a friend of his, driving to his place immediately. The man had some connections in the sheriff's office, so he offered to ask around. After some cursory calls, Ramon was told there wasn't anything that the police could do yet. "It's extremely unusual. It's the first one of my career," said Lieutenant Mike Atkins after hearing Ramon's confession. But equipped with only the word of a friend and the threats of an angry wife, there was nothing for the police to do unless Ramon started documenting conversations with Lulu to build their case. He was on his own. When Ramon told Mundo that he'd gone to the police, he expected his surrogate son to come with him, but Mundo told him the bad news. "I've done enough, Pops. You could take it from here." Mundo told Ramon that, from where he grew up, people didn't do what he just did. There were expectations of him that he would remain loyal and never snitch. Mundo had broken their most paramount rule. After weeks of collecting information, recording conversations, documenting meetings, Ramon finally had enough information to go to the police. When he arrived, he spoke to the lieutenant and was immediately brought before the station captain. They questioned him for a moment before they asked, "Why do you think your friend Mundo helped you, and why is he not here with you?" They were suspicious of Mundo immediately, and they made it clear that without his witness, it would be hard to build a case. Mundo had to come forward, and on July 20th, Mundo came through. After lengthy back and forths with Lulu, they were ready to lay the trap. DPS agent Edgar and Mundo, in an undercover police vehicle, drove to their meeting point with Lulu. She arrived, entered their vehicle, and immediately began discussing payment with who she believed was a Mexican hitman, but was really a cop in disguise. With the payment agreed on, she drove away quickly to a bank, retrieved the money, and handed over a suitcase full of cash. This was it. She'd put the final nail into her own coffin, and Ramon was about to step into his own grave. The only thing left to do was to dig a hole and apply a little makeup. Ramon arrived at the scene where investigator officer Speyer, who learned how to apply gore makeup from YouTube, took out a series of photos from actual homicide cases to decide which one they thought would work best for Ramon. Having found a shot they liked, the police were able to set the stage for the photo shoot. dressed Ramon up, or rather down, into his fully cadavered form and lowered him into the hole, snapping photos to send to Lulu. Once they were done, the only thing left was the arrest. Lulu had wrestled management of Woodland's gym from Ramon and had been running the place on her own for the last few months. Today, however, would be different. Detectives had been tailing Lulu from the moment she woke up to the moment she went to bed, so when she finally arrived that afternoon, they were waiting. They watched her enter the building and followed close behind. They'd passed a few members of the gym idly working out and asked one of the members where they could find Lulu. They pointed her out. The detectives approached, saying, "Miss Sosa, we are here because someone filed a missing person report on your husband, Ramon Sosa. When was the last time you saw him?" She pretended to be surprised. "I think I saw him last Wednesday," she continued, saying that she'd been calling around to see if anyone had seen him, but to no avail. That's when they brought down the axe. "Miss Sosa, you're under arrest for the solicitation of the murder of Ramon Sosa," she protested, but they didn't relent. "Miss Sosa, please put your hands behind your back. You're under arrest." In Ramon's words, "Hello, Karma. Welcome to the Woodlands Gym." Looking back at his memories, Ramon says that, "The first thing I remembered when she walked into the packed courtroom was hearing the sounds of the chains." Ramon looked at the $1 shoes given to Lulu by the state and thought about how she wanted a better life for her and her family. He'd been able to give her everything she wanted, but it wasn't enough. Lulu ended up being charged to serve 20 years in prison for second-degree solicitation of capital murder, but now Ramon had been able to forgive her. Recently, he said, "When I chose to forgive her, it was like as if all the air was left out of a balloon. I was holding on to so much hatred. It was bottled up inside of me. And then it was released, and it felt so good to no longer be so angry." Today, Ramon has found love again and is engaged to be married. He published a book in 2019 called I Walked on My Own Grave, much of which was used to write this episode. One way or another, his book is really a hit, man. Based on our recent video about an omelet that brought down an entire plane, we put a poll on Twitter asking, "Are you scared of flying?" Turns out nearly 40% of you think there's nothing to worry about. So fearless, considering surveys say around 40% of the public does experience some anxiety during flights.